Welcome back to College Hill Farm. Welcome to another exciting episode of Sage Advice from the Tractor Shed. Now, I want to preface this video. This is not a political video. I am not looking at nobody's politics. I am not looking at nobody's left or right okay? The only thing I'm looking at is a historical context of what happened in the past, what's going on now, and will it happen in the future. And preppers have to do that. First off, you need to be a student of history, and you need to go back and look at histories from more than one source. As a matter of fact, when you look at history, you have to think about what is being written in history, and remember that the victors write the history, okay? The winners write history. For example, the Civil War. I grew up in Kentucky, and we taught that the Civil War was a states' rights issue. But if you look at the letters of Confederation, it was all about slavery. Okay? It was all about slavery. But we were taught in our history that it was about states' rights, which is totally not true. So you have to look at those histories and know what's bull sugar and what's fact and what's, and look at the facts. Preppers have to turn off the lens of politics and look at what's actually happening. Okay? And so we're going to talk, you saw the title of the video, we're going to talk about we've got these little worms, these little caterpillars that are everywhere. They love my chair. Anyway, we're going to talk about hyperinflation. And are we experiencing that? The price of eggs is $8. Are we experiencing hyperinflation? Let's talk about what hyperinflation is first. All right. Hyperinflation is where the prices of goods go up so much that your dollar or mark or pound or euro or whatever is so worthless that you can't buy enough food. In the 20s, just before the Great Depression kicked in, America was doing really great. Europe was doing good. It was after World War I, and everything was coming along. Woodrow Wilson had formed the League of Nations, and everybody was trading and exchanging, and the global economy was booming. Called it the Roaring Twenties. And it was even in Europe that this was going on. Not in the Middle East, not in China, not in Africa, not in South America, okay? They were still impoverished. But in the U.S. and Europe, there was an economic boom. And then, at the end of that economic boom, there was a downturn. And the downturn was so great. We talk about it here. The Great Depression itself had a peak unemployment rate of about 26%. So you got to think about who was unemployed. Well, the unemployed were a lot of the unemployed were the older folks. There was no Social Security, no safety nets, and so a lot of the unemployed were older folks because you had to work till you were down. People lived in multi-generational homes. Even when I was a kid, we still lived in multi-generational homes. My grandparents took care of both of their parents until they died. Okay? Took them right into the house with them and took care of them until they died. So there were multi-generational homes. We've got away from that. It may be coming back. You just have to pay attention to what's going on. But hyperinflation was so great. By the time the stock market crashed, the Dutch mark, the German mark, was about worthless. There were tails. Of course, you can't go by tails. Tails, like all the people jumping out of the windows of Wall Street. That didn't happen. Okay? That didn't happen. One guy, and they don't even know if he jumped. So it wasn't that people were jumping out the windows of Wall Street. That's hyped bullshit. Okay? So You gotta get away from that. But the Dutch mark, they claimed that you would have to take a wheelbarrow full of Dutch marks to go shopping for a month's groceries. That they were that useless. Okay? Like the Bible, a penny for a loaf of bread. Well, a penny back then was a man's whole week's wages for a loaf of bread. That's what it was talking about. So hyperinflation kicked in, and in some days inflation could go up as much as 100%. The prices of stuff would double in a day. That's hyperinflation. Okay? And it continues for days on end. All right? And we saw that during the Great Depression. And people were losing their homes, and they were migrating across the country. Most of the ones were farm workers. At that time, farm work was the #1 job in the United States. More people were employed in farming than were employed in factories and all that stuff at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. Most everybody were still farming. So hyperinflation occurs when the dollar or the mark or the pound or the euro or whatever, the Russian ruble, plunges in price, okay? Plunges in value. And when I say in value, like you might buy a loaf of bread for $2 now, but in a month it might be $26 for that loaf of bread. You've lost that much value in your dollar, okay? So that's hyperinflation. So let's talk about, are we in hyperinflation or the beginnings of hyperinflation? Okay. Now, here in the U.S., we get our news from our news agencies, all owned by about 4 corporations, okay? All of our news agencies are owned by about 4 corporations. You can look it up. Okay, it's straightforward. It doesn't say that this news corporation is that, but they're owned by Paramount. Okay, or this news organization is that, but they're owned by Time Warner. Okay, all right. They've got their own corporations, but the master corporation's up here on top. All right, so you really have to go outside the U.S. if you want to get a clear look at the news going on. There's several sources. Beware of R News, RN, that's the Russian news network. Beware of them. Beware of some of the other ones. I like to listen to DW News. I listen to RN, okay? I listen to the Russian news network. Sometimes they tell you the things that they're on their mind, and you see where their thought process is. And you have to step back and look at it with an open mind about what they're saying. They spin it from a Russian standpoint. The BBC spins it from a British standpoint. DW News spins it from, okay, you see where I'm going with that? The United States used to have one that spun it from the United States standpoint. It was called Radio Free America. Radio America. Why it's been closed, I don't know, but it has. Why you wouldn't want a national news network broadcasting to the democracy to the world, I don't know. But you know, that's your business. That's their business, not mine. I just pay attention to what's going on. Now, are we in hyperinflation? And the answer is no. We're not in hyperinflation. Tariffs are going to make things go up. Might make things go up overnight. 100% tariff on Chinese goods, for example, might make Chinese goods double in price. I don't think for a minute it will make Chinese companies come to America and produce their goods here. Okay? It just won't. But we have to pay that price. The Chinese don't pay for the tariffs that we put on the Chinese goods. Me and you pay for that if we buy Chinese products. And if you go to Walmart or Rural King or Tractor Supply or Harbor Freight Tools, or you're buying Chinese-made products, okay, or Malaysian-made products, or okay, and there's tariffs going on about everybody that trades with the U.S. And some of y'all say, well, it's only fair if we put tariffs and this, that, and the other. Well, you know, they put tariffs on our goods, but the price of their goods is so low. For example, we send all kinds of farm goods to countries like Malaysia. We sell it to them. And while we sell to them at our market value, they sell it at basically the same market value with a little bit of tax on it. And so for us, when we get their stuff that we buy, then we put a big tariff on it that covers the shipping and all that stuff. We put a big tariff on it, and that's a tax on me and you. We pay that tax. So yeah, you just have to look at it and go, okay, I don't necessarily agree with tariffs, but you know, the administration's doing what they think is right. So that's where we're at. The price of eggs. Now, the price of eggs is a complicated thing, okay? And no political agency is going to be able to control the price of eggs, okay? I don't care if you're a Republican, a Democrat, or whatever. But every political agency will try to make hay off the price of eggs. Eggs here at our dollar store, the highest they went up were $8.65, and they were, before that, they were like $2.85. So basically they went up 3 times. They tripled. If it had been hyperinflation, they would have gone up 20 or 30 times. So that's not hyperinflation, and they would have done it over the course of a day or 2 days or 3 days. Okay? You see what I'm saying? So we're not experiencing hyperinflation. We are experiencing market inflation. We do have quite a bit of inflation. Inflation is going to be greater this year than it was in 2023. But you know, that's just the way it is. You and I have to deal with that, and I deal with it with raising my own stuff, saving my own seeds. Fertilizer only went up $1. I was tickled with that. Fertilizer had only gone up $1. If the Canadian tariffs go into effect, fertilizer will go up a lot. But I've already bought 3 bags. I've got 3 years worth of fertilizer, so I'm good to go. So we're not in hyperinflation, but we are in inflation. And the inflation hits the weakest part of the economy. Let's talk about that. Now, Crystal and I make a decent living. All right? I don't make any money on the homestead. The homestead is a hobby, and it's a hedge against inflation. That's always been its purpose. We raise all of our vegetables. We raise most of our food. We buy meat, but it's not unlike me to kill a deer and put deer in the freezer. We've got, I guess, 2 deer in the freezer right now. I like deer meat, especially deer stew. But anyway, so we've got deer meat. It's not unlike me to go to the auction and buy a couple of lambs and put it in the freezer every year, or buy a pig locally. I want to get to where I can raise my own lamb and pig. But since we moved here 10 years ago, things have not moved that way. In 2019, I got sick, and then here in 2024, Crystal got sick. So we are not, we didn't get to do those things that we wanted to do, and now I'm 62 and she's 61. So will we be able to do them? I don't know. But we have Amish people around here, and I can always go buy a lamb or a beef or whatever and kill it myself and put it in the freezer. So we have 4 freezers downstairs. I'm building a solar system so that if prices go up on our electricity, and folks, prices are going to go up. Let's talk about that. Now, we came here in 2014. We bought the house in November of 2014, and we moved here permanent in January of 2015 and started renovating the house. And I waited till I got most of the house renovated the way I wanted, and then I started the YouTube channel. I had always wanted to do a little YouTube channel about homesteading. I started out watching YouTube about 2012 about homesteading, and we'd lived that lifestyle all of our life. So about 2012 I started watching, and 2018 I started our own YouTube channel. And we save our videos on a little hard drive, a little 2 terabyte hard drive. You can buy them, they plug into the USB port on a computer. I've got a large computer downstairs that's got a lot of RAM and stuff, so I can edit the videos and do that kind of stuff. And I use these little 2 terabyte hard drives to back up our videos. Well, I've gone through 3 of them. I'm on the 3rd one now. I've got a blue one and a yellow one and a red one. I'm on the red one right now. And I bought them as I needed them, because I didn't know how long I would do YouTube. So I was just buying them as I needed them to save my videos back. And I've changed video editors a couple times, and once I've learned a little more and got a little better and got a little better cameras, and okay. So about 2 years in, I bought the first of those drives and backed it up and then erased it all off my computer and started with the next one. Well, it was $54.95 for a 2 terabyte drive back then. I was about 2 years in, so it's about 20. It's about 2020. I bought the first one, and then it was before the pandemic, and then I bought a second one about 2022, and then I just bought the 3rd one, and the one I bought in 2022 was $59.95. Well, I went day before yesterday and bought another one, and it was $113.95. So basically, in 4 years, that hard drive had doubled in price. Okay? Doubled in price. So that's 100% inflation. Alright? Is that greedflation? Because according to everything, inflation's only been 2 to 4% for the last 8 years. Okay? Somewhere between 1 and 4% for the last 8 years. So that must be greedflation. That's the only excuse you can come up with, is that that's greedflation. So yeah, you have to pay it. You don't have no choice. Prices are always going to go up. Sometimes they'll go up tremendous ways, depending on demand. Electricity. Let's do electricity for an example. When we moved here, our electricity, I think, was 7.5 cents. That was 10 years ago this January. Electricity, we're on something called Kentucky Utilities, some of the lowest utility prices in the nation. And the cost for their service was 7.5 cents a kilowatt hour. Okay? 7.5 cents a kilowatt hour when we moved here. Now, I think I looked at it and it was 10.9 cents per kilowatt hour, which that really fits in with the 1% a year inflation rate. So, yeah. So our inflation rates went up almost half again as much, basically 50% in 10 years. And you can expect that to continue. My highest electricity bill this year was $264 or something like that. So I assume that's going to, over the next 10 years, that's going to at least go up by 50%. So over the next 10 years, my highest electricity bill is probably going to be $375. That's just the way it's going. And you can be assured that it's going to be that way. That's the way inflation works. My income goes up. I draw a teacher's retirement because I was a college professor and a high school teacher and all that stuff, and I worked to get my full retirement. And I get a 1.5% cost of living allowance every year. So when inflation goes up 2%, I lose 0.5% value in what I draw. So that's just the way it is. That's the way old people wind up having less money than they have years in their life. So you gotta be a prepper and plan for that. Okay? You have to plan for that. Our hedge against that is the homestead. There are some other hedges and things. I've never known of a tax to go down except on rich people. Okay? A tax has never been dropped except on rich people. That's just all there is to it. And that's all it's going to be as long as I live. Okay? Until we have a French Revolution. That's the way it is. Taxes go up. Well, there's another one of them caterpillars. Get off me. Here they are. These are these little tent caterpillars. I've got a big American black cherry over here, and they love the thing. They're all over it. All right, buddy, go on. I don't worry about them until they get in my apple trees, and I give them a shot of Bengal roach spray inside the nest, and that takes care of them. Gone, 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 gone. Anyway, where was I? You know, this getting old and forgetting where you're at. You know, these talks, I look at them like I'm talking to you on the front porch. That's the way I look at them, and sometimes I lose my train of thought. Might have to go back in the video and look, see where I was at, but I think I'm talking about things going up. They're always going to go up. I've bought solar panels so that I can run my freezers off of solar. So just the little things that you have to prep for to get ready for inflation to continue. Could we see hyperinflation in my lifetime? Oh yeah. Okay? Nobody thought in 1920 that there was going to be hyperinflation, or 1922 after World War I that there was going to be hyperinflation. It just happened. Okay? It just happened. And 25% of the population lost their job. And that sent them migrating all over the country because they couldn't pay rent. All right? And our rents have got to where it's hard for anybody on minimum wage can't pay rent right now. They cannot afford a one-bedroom apartment on minimum wage. And that's a sad state of affairs. All right? They can't afford a one-bedroom apartment and something to drive and something to eat on minimum wage. We need to raise it. But that's my business. That's the way I feel about it. Because there's some people that are never going to be able to work at a job more than minimum wage, and they deserve to live too. Just saying. I know, I was a school teacher. There are some people that all they'll ever be able to do are certain menial tasks. And those tasks are utterly important. We need to pay them. Okay, enough on that rant. So, are we experiencing hyperinflation? No, we're not experiencing hyperinflation. We are experiencing normal inflation with some peaks and valleys. But if you go back and look at inflation from 1910 to now, you'll see that it goes boop, 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 boop. Okay? When recessions happen, inflation goes way up. All right? When depressions happen, inflation goes way up. It's generally inflation, then depression. All right? Inflation, then recession. Unemployment insurance and Social Security have kept us off of going into a depression. 2008, we would have gone into a depression if it hadn't been for Social Security and unemployment insurance. Just what would have happened, okay? It just would. So, be a student of history. If you're going to prep, you got to be a student of history and pay attention to what is going on. Now, I'll give you a little update about Crystal. today's Good Friday, and Crystal had her surgery a week ago. We go back to the doctor and we'll get her test results. We hope they're all good. We hope she's cancer free. So that's where we're at. It's been a long road. It started in August, and it's been a long road. So remember, send your prayers when you get a chance. We'll remember you. Jesus knows. You don't have to ask him for stuff. I know all these preachers tell you, you got to ask Jesus for this. You got to ask him for that. If he knows everything, he knows the desires of your heart. Okay? That's the way I pray. Okay? If you look at the Lord's Prayer, that's the way he was praying. He taught you how to pray. Alright? It's not rocket science. I'm not a preacher, but it's not rocket science. Alright? So, yeah, we're doing alright. We're making it. We don't know what the future holds. None of us do. So, we're in the same boat as everybody else. We're doing the best we can. And that's the way life is. You do the best you can for as long as you can. That's why I put in raised beds. So I could do the best I could for as long as I could. Because I'm not getting any younger either. Alright? I'm not getting any younger either. So now, if you like this stuff, this homesteading, do-it-yourself kind of thing, be certain to come on out to the channel and subscribe. We do this homesteading stuff every week, sometimes 1, sometimes 5 videos. Just depends on what's going on in the homestead that week. Now, if you hit the little bell, it'll be right up here when you come to the channel. It'll notify you when we upload a video. We upload on Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, with the occasional short on through the week and on Saturday. So now, it's time for me to get on to the next thing. I love you all.